Alright, so the live stream is going. Trying to get some settings going here. Still fiddling with the app. So, let's go portrait instead of landscape this time. So, anywho, just got out of Petco, and I was actually quite disappointed to see what I saw, because that particular Petco generally does a pretty good job at what they do, but today was a major exception. And I think part of the problem with that Petco is there used to be a guy that worked there, and he was really, really good at what he does. He was in college to get the education to become part of the Department of Natural Resources, so he really knew a lot about aquatic creatures. Unfortunately, it looks like they haven't had any real good fish specialists in that store for a while, just by looking at the tanks, because, like I was saying, I used to go to the Petco I was just in, the little video I just made, a lot, and their tanks were generally really well kept, especially for a Petco. But when I got in there, I was not very happy with what I saw. And long story short, I came in to buy some nearite snails, some zebra nearites, to help clean up some algae in some of my tanks, because they're my go-to for cleaning up algae and, low bio load. But sometimes the best thing you can do is just walk away from the situation completely and just not risk it. Because when I was in there, there was a section of fish that clearly had very bad ick. And I would notice that immediately, and I'm like, whoa, there's not even a sign. Normally they put a sign that says, not for sale, fish under observation. And they'll either try and treat the fish, or they'll work out something with their supplier. But there wasn't any signs or notifications. And I went to one of the employees. You didn't see this on the live stream just a few minutes ago, but I went to one of the employees, and I pointed it out, and they acknowledged that, oh yeah, we know we have ick. And I'm like, well, if you know you have ick, why are these fish still for sale? That's bad business practice. You never sell fish that are sick, because then you jeopardize the entire tank. Now, that being said, this is where a good quarantine tank comes in handy. A quarantine tank is the saving grace if you can afford to have a second tank ready on the go just for this purpose. A lot of people don't have a quarantine tank, unfortunately, and this is where problems occur. I saw ick. I saw signs of what could be the beginning stages of fin rot, or at the very least nipping from aggression from some of the other fish, which indicate that they're not very happy with either their tank mates or the confined space that they're in. And I was looking around. I didn't get to record everything that I wanted to show. There were a lot of guppies with a lot of fin tearing on their tail fin. This is where you see a lot of typical damage, is on the tail fin specifically. And guppies are peaceful fish. The problem is when it's just all males, sometimes they get a little bit too aggressive, and they'll just bite each other if they're not happy. And here's the problem with a lot of these fish. Now, That was kind of the extent of what we saw here. Granted, there was a lot of cosmetic annoyances, or complaints, I should say. It doesn't look like they've been vacuuming the substrate, first off. Those tanks have such huge buildup of a bunch of different stuff on the substrate. The glass has not been cleaned in what can be assumed at least 2 weeks. I know what it looks like when glass isn't cleaned for a while. A lot of fish will pick at the glass and kind of eat whatever's kind of like sitting there. But these fish just weren't interested in that, and I'm wondering if they're even getting any food whatsoever. Generally, the Petco does feed their fish a little bit, but their filtration systems are not so great. I was asking, what tanks are set up together on the same filtration system, and they said that, most of the tanks are separate from each other, so things like the ick and the fin rot and whatnot shouldn't be contagious in certain tanks, but I just don't believe that to a certain extent. It's just better to walk away than to risk it over a $3 snail. Because, look, a snail can't get ick because ick only appears on fish with scales. And a snail is not a fish with scales. But that doesn't mean that the snail can't carry the disease with them. That's the problem. And granted, they would be going inside of a tank with only other invertebrates, particularly some of my Neocardinia davidi shrimp. And it wouldn't generally be a problem, but that being said, it's not good to introduce anything like that anyway. I just don't think it was a good idea. So I'm going to try a different pet store and see what I can find in terms of a nearite snail, particularly zebra nearites, because I've had a lot of different nearites, black racers, olives, zebras, tigers, and I think the zebra nearites, for whatever reason, do better, and they can grow really big compared to some of the other nearites, which I think kind of plays into their appetite, which is why I like them particularly for cleaning up algae around the tanks and whatnot. But, let's travel back a few weeks. I was at a Meijer, which, if you don't have Meijer in your location, it's like Walmart. If you're in the UK, maybe it's like Tesco or something like that, I believe. I recorded the issue, and here's the problem with Meijer, is they use an RODI system, which is great for cleaning the water and getting it nearly pristine as pure H2O, but fish don't want pure H2O. They need other stuff, especially when 90%, well, maybe not 90, but I want to say a good 70% of the stock that was in the tanks at Meijer were live-bearing fish. And they think that, okay, we're putting in fresh, clean water. Great. The problem is live-bearing fish require hard water in order to survive because they need the extra electrolytes and minerals in the water for their bodies because they're not like other fish. And as I showed in that video, they had a very bad case of the shimmies, which is essentially an electrolyte deficiency that causes their nervous system to go haywire, and that's why they sit in place and just kind of wiggle. And that's basically the precursor to their death. If it doesn't get corrected almost immediately, they will die, and I have no doubt in my mind that they have probably passed away in Meijer's fish tanks, which is really unfortunate. I was surprised to see that only the mollies got the shimmies. I was expecting the guppies of any of them to get the shimmies, but maybe the mollies had been in the tanks for longer than the guppies. So, big box stores like Walmart, Meijer, it's not worth supporting their business just when they sell fish. It's not that they necessarily don't care. There are a lot of examples of people that I've talked to on Reddit who go into Walmart specifically for the fish section, and they do everything they can to try and make the fish happy. But the corporate regulations and rules that they have to abide by restrict them from being able to do what really is necessary that is best for the fish. Now, I just got a question. Let me see the little chat. Have you seen the video of people going into the Walmart fish store? Well, that's, there's a ton of videos like that and using their products. Well, there's a lot of videos of, for instance, people going to any pet store, particularly Walmart. And I don't think Walmart should ever sell fish. I don't mind them selling fish accessories, like equipment and whatnot, but they shouldn't sell the fish. They don't know what they can't properly take care of them. But I have seen situations where people take the betas in the cups, and the betas are almost dead because the ammonia buildup is getting intense. You'll notice that a lot of the cups have a blue tinge to them, and that's because they add special chemicals like, to reduce the ammonia to make them live longer in the cups. But I see them changing out the water in the cups, and that's okay for the moment. But the problem is they forget that when they do that, they're probably using city water in the Walmart, which means there's chlorine in the water, and they may actually be poisoning the betas in a different way. Now, at least they're getting rid of the ammonia, but now they've got chlorine, which is just as deadly. But there are water conditioners in the aisles, and I wouldn't be surprised if people took the water conditioner, put it in the cups, and, cleaned up the water first before they, made the beta go back in. Some people are conscious like that, but there are people out there who legitimately dedicate as much as their time and, sadly, their own money towards trying to help the fish at Walmart. Experienced aquarists trying to do the right thing, and they are, it's an uphill struggle all the time. Finding people who care enough to take on a job at Wally World just for the fish, I mean, kudos to them. That is hard. Walmart doesn't like you going against regulations. I've seen very detailed accounts of this, and it's really sad. Now, the Petco I was in, like I said, I was shocked because normally this Petco is really good. Normally their tanks are fantastic, like spotless clean. I've never actually seen any diseased fish at this Petco that I was at. And that's what was kind of shocking, which leads me to believe the guy who was there, who deals with the fish, who was working towards becoming part of the DNR, probably got his job at the DNR and is doing more important stuff for the ecosystem, which kudos to him. He was a great guy to talk to, by the way. I mean, you'll be surprised if you just sit around and talk to the people in the fish section, and you get to see, who you're talking to. Some people really know their stuff, which is fantastic, but the sad part is a lot of the employees are given basically a 20 or 30 minute video, like an orientation to fish, and they basically just describe, where the mouth is on the fish kind of determines what they might eat, but there's nothing about compatibility. I know that firsthand because when I was a much less experienced aquarist, my friend and I got our first aquariums that were actually decent. And my friend wanted to get a Pictus catfish, but his tank wasn't completely cycled just yet. And he said, well, can we put it in your community tank? And I'm like, well, I guess so, because the person at the Petco said, well, it's a community fish. Well, we put the Pectus catfish in. The Pectus catfish annihilated almost everything. And we took it out and we returned it the next day because, holy sweet mother of mercy, that fish was vicious. So, don't trust, what you hear from the pet stores in terms of compatibility. Always do your own research. If you have a smartphone, Google is just a few seconds away. And generally, you're not the first person ever to ask a question, so it's worth taking the extra time. Now, I am probably going to go to other pet stores. I haven't decided which one I want to go to yet. I might try a different Petco, because I prefer Petcos over the PetSmarts. Petcos tend to generally do better with their fish, which is, like I said, why this whole situation was kind of shocking. The only problem is the other Petco is a bit of a distance away. But I do know some of the people at the PetSmart. They know me. I've actually had some products that I've designed in AutoCAD and had 3D printed for scooping out pest snails. They let me give them to the employees there to do some beta testing and whatnot. And I got real feedback based on the design. I got to change it and everything. It was really cool. So the people at the PetSmart that I go to know me. They know I like to breed fish, and they're always, really helpful to me. Generally, I speak with one or two particular people that actually know what they're talking about, which is great. Diamonds in the rough. And they get to know what they're talking about just because they work there long enough. And because they work there long enough, they learn a thing or two about fish before when they came in, they really didn't know much about what it is they were doing, other than the basics of maybe what the fish would eat. But at least with the Petco tanks, I've never seen them as dilapidated as the tanks I just saw. So, let's see, I got another comment. At the PetSmart, this one guy asked an employee how big of a tank you need for a rainbow shark. She said, well, the rule is the 1 gallon per inch rule. Oh, man, if I had a nickel for every time I've heard that. Yeah, that rule goes straight out the window as soon as you start talking about anything that's not like a live-bearing fish. Generally speaking, I don't know why they're taught that. That is such a blatant disregard to the actual nature of things. Here's how to tell if the person you're talking to knows what they're talking about. Ask about a normal pleco, a common pleco, and ask them what kind of tank they would need for a common pleco. If they tell you anything other than a massive tank because these things grow to be huge, then they don't know what they're talking about. Because common plecos are probably the most sold sucker fish at the PetSmarts. And common plecos, they start out small, which is why people buy them. They think, oh, they're cute. They clean the glass. They get rid of the algae. Great. But then they grow, huge. And that's where the problem comes in, is they sell them at a small size, and they don't tell you how big they get. And here's the thing. Sometimes it's not because they don't want to tell you or they're trying to lie to you. It's because they are contractually obligated by their employer to only give out the information that will sell the fish. And I've actually talked to people at PetSmart about this. I can't name names and I can't tell people just for their own, job security. But they basically told me, look, we're told what we can and can't say. If we say anything that will stop the sale of the fish, we're not allowed to do that. We can only tell them stuff that would sell the fish. And that's how it is at some places. Some of the corporate entities really do that, which is really bad if you ask me. I mean, the best pet stores will be the ones that tell you don't get this fish because so-and-so, yada, yada. But a lot of pet stores, they just want to sell you the fish. And maybe the situation with the Pictus catfish that I was just talking about was something similar. Because if you look it up anywhere, I've talked to people all around in different pet stores. They all say Pictus catfish are kind of mean. So, yeah. But, yeah, the 1 inch per gallon rule is really, really bad. It's a terrible concept. I think any fish after, 4 inches, you should at least triple the rule, 3 gallons per inch. But even then, you got to take into account how exactly the fish grows. Is it a wide fish or is it a long fish, Because a 55 gallon is a bigger tank. It's longer, but it's not nearly as wide as a 40 breeder. So depending on the fish, you know, the dimensions of the tank may be a little bit more important than the size of the tank just by, you know, alone. There's different factors to take into consideration. So, yeah, it's a bit of a conundrum why that became some sort of golden rule. But anywho, I am going to try one of the PetSmarts that I normally go to and see if they have a zebra nearite. Because I have an olive nearite, and my olive nearite is really good at what she does, but she's laying eggs all over the tank. And I have freshwater tanks, and technically speaking, nearite snails are brackish water snails. That's why their eggs don't hatch in anything other than brackish water. So their eggs are all inert. So they don't really do me any good. That's another reason why I gotta get a different snail. I'm gonna see if I could trade my snail. But sometimes they do that. Sometimes they don't. Anywho, so with that being said, guys, I'm going to stop the live stream right here, and I might do some live streaming at the PetSmarts if they allow me to. There's generally a lot of people, and generally recording inside any facility without prior permission is against the rules, which is, you know, kind of strange. I mean, they can record us, but we can't record them. That's annoying. But yeah, so I'll see you guys in a little bit. Yeah, I'm gonna go to the PetSmart that I normally go to. So yeah, I'll start up the live stream again when I'm there, and we'll just go from there. So in the interest of driving safe, I don't like to have anything, you know, that's distracting when I drive. So see you in a bit.